Every day we're finding out more about the atrocities.
They came together on Victoria Island to talk about ways to heal and move forward. Survivors, their families, and supporters from the wider Ottawa community want the federal government to honor its residential school apology of 2008, especially now that Canadians are learning of experiments conducted on students in these schools.
The primary focus is to honor the residential school survivors and also to raise the awareness of the most horrendous discovery of the experiments, the biomedical experiments that were done on our children.
What I found was that it was really tough.
A lot of the people gathered here at the Ottawa Centre have followed a similar path. They moved to Ottawa from small Aboriginal communities across the country. Teens Cheyenne McLeod and Darcy McNabb are originally from Quebec and Saskatchewan. They're still adjusting to life in the big city.
You see TV on high school, and it's like you have this clique and this clique, and when I was growing up in the reserve, I never seen that. But as soon as I came here, that's exactly what I seen.
Gabrielle Indigenous cause, so my name is Gabrielle.
Naomi Sarrazin works with Aboriginal students on campus. She says the class is a good way to keep the language alive in an urban setting.
There's not a lot of opportunity to speak the language with other people, so creating a course like this allows for people to interact with each other in the language.
I feel like we're treated like third-class citizens, and we're in a first world country.
Idle No More is a national grassroots Aboriginal movement that started in opposition to the federal government's omnibus budget bill. First Nations groups saw it as a threat to land and treaty rights, as well as natural resources and the environment. Now it's become a widespread awareness campaign to preserve rights, culture, and the traditional connection to land.
It's about protecting the natural resources for the future generations, making sure that, there's things in place for my nieces and my nephews.
I want for people never to forget that we're missing so many of our women. I want people to recognize that we're not lying down for this.
Police estimate there have been nearly 1,200 missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada in recent decades. So there are repeated calls here for a national inquiry.
An inquiry would serve as a forum for these families to come forward with a sense of justice.
More than 300 entrepreneurs and business leaders from across the country are meeting here at Lac Limi to network and promote Aboriginal business in Canada. The Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business is hosting the event, with Aboriginal businesses from all sectors expected to contribute $13 billion to the Canadian economy by 2016. President and CEO JP Gladue says there's lots of expertise and money to go around.
The conference is focused around access to capital, access to contracts or procurement, the goods and services, as well as best practices as far as running and starting and growing your business.
Commission Chair Justice Murray Sinclair says these markers will help survivors on the path to healing.
To ensure that people who had been to the schools would always be able to point to something to say, that's where I went, and that it would also help them as an aid memoir to remember those things that they wanted to remember and to be able to put aside those things they need to put aside.
On top of that, he believes they'll create what he calls a national memory for Canadians in the future to learn about a dark chapter in history. Gu Doyle hopes the discussions continue for generations to come.
I think it will be so welcome in the other communities as well to have this kind of ceremony.
Wapgijik Rice, CBC News, Ottawa.